I wanted to speak to an immigration judge about this because do Haitians have a valid claim for asylum? When I spoke to Ildefonso Poncho Ortiz about this last hour, he did tell us that they're going to release a video on Breitbart later this afternoon that I think explains, or they're probably going to interview Haitians and they're going to see why they're all coming to the United States. One thing that you also heard from the previous interview that I played with Sergio and Agent John and Svinson is that a lot of Haitians who are crossing into the United States already they've lived in Central America for years. They know Spanish, and they heard that now is I heard Zach. They heard that now is the time to come to the U.S. So now they're coming. Joining me on 710 KURV is Naim. He is an attorney, an immigration attorney. Naim, thank you so much for joining me today. I really appreciate it. Now,
Sure.
Naim Sakhia, you are an attorney at law. Naim, when you see what is happening with the situation in Del Rio, when you see thousands of Haitians crossing the southern border and just kind of camping out underneath the international bridge, do you know the reason why Haitians are coming? Have you had the opportunity to represent a family from Haiti? What do you know about that situation?
Yeah, so let me give you some historical perspective. There's something called temporary protected status. It is a status which the U.S. government grants to the citizens of a country who perhaps are in the U.S. already as a visitor, as a citizen, as a naturalized citizen, on a green card, or for whatever reasons, applying for asylum and all that. Let's say they are in the U.S. and all of a sudden there is a calamity which happens in their country, a large earthquake, a hurricane, a political problem, economic meltdown, and all that. So the U.S. government grants them temporary protected status, saying that because of the severity of the adverse situation in their home country, we are not going to send these people back to their home country. They can live in the United States on a temporary basis. They'll be given work authorization as long as they register themselves with the authorities in the time frame which is given for that, for that kind of status. Now, Haiti had an earthquake back in 2010. They've had hurricanes. They've had a series of misfortunate and unfortunate incidents. So they had been given this TPS status in the past, and the latest announcement came in May of this year, where the Department of Homeland Security said that if on May 13, 2021, you are already in the U.S. and you are a Haitian national, you can apply for registration and you can stay here.
From what was that date again, May?
It was May of 2021. I don't have the exact date, but it was the month of May 2021.
So in May of 2021, if you were a Haitian who was already in the United States, you would be given the chance to apply for that TPS.
All right. Now, fast forward to August 14th of 2021. There was an earthquake in Haiti. About a month and a half ago, there was an assassination, a political assassination. And right now there is political vacuum. There is no security as far as what they tell us, meaning the Haitian nationals. So it is expected, and they are hoping that there will be another announcement like that, which will grant them TPS if they are in the United States. So that's why there's all of a sudden there's a surge of people coming in. And these are the individuals who have been outside Haiti for a long period of time because they left back in 2010. They have been living in Central American countries, mainly because there was plenty of jobs because of the Olympics, which was happening in Brazil. And now those jobs have dried up. Now, because of the pandemic situation, the economy slowed down, and because of this hope that there will be another TPS announcement very soon. So let's just go ahead and make it. So that's exactly why we are seeing so many people all of a sudden showing up in a span of 1 week. There are like 15,000 people showed up in Del Rio.
Yep. Yeah. We on Friday, I spoke with this Border Patrol agent who told us that on Friday it was 12,000. He also said this morning to my our boss Sergio Sanchez, who has a show in the morning. I'm sure you've spoken to him also as well, Naim, that it was 15,000, and that 9,000 of just 9,000 people who are underneath that bridge right now, who are currently seeking asylum, are family units, so they will be allowed to stay in the United States. They will be given their NTA, and like you mentioned, maybe along or down the road will be given that temporary protective status. What's the difference between an NTA and the TPS?
Well, TPS is, as I said, discretionary. The U.S. government basically announces on their own volition whenever they feel like they have a part of the world who is, I mean, the citizens of which cannot be returned back to that place because of the natural calamity or severe economic problems or law and order problems and things of that nature. Now, the NTA is different. NTA is where they are given notice to appear in the court
Yeah.
saying that we plan on removing you from our States based on this section of the law and that section of the law. We charge that you have done these violations. Biggest of them is you have just illegally crossed into U.S. or you have stayed here beyond authorized period, and we want to send you back. And then they get an opportunity to seek whatever relief they feel they are eligible for, and then they get an opportunity to present evidence.
Yeah.
Let me just correct one thing here. We don't know exactly for sure that all these 15,000 people will be allowed into U.S. because what we have heard is starting Sunday, which was yesterday, there are flights, charter flights running from Del Rio and going and Mexico also going to Haiti. So about 3,000 people have been claimed to have been removed already, and the plan is to remove pretty much everybody by next week.
Well, I know those are the reports, Naim, but again, when we spoke, when our boss spoke this morning to the Border Patrol agent, he said that there have been 9,000 that are comprised of family units. And like you've been seeing, we've all been seeing since the start of the year, family units are usually allowed to stay in the U.S. while they wait for their court dates. We know that a lot of single adults are being expelled back to their country of origin, just like under Title 42, we have a lot of Central Americans being expelled back to Mexico. And that is usually comprised of single adults. But we've been told by many agents that family units are usually allowed to stay in the U.S. Is that what you're seeing as well as an immigration attorney, or are you seeing things differently?
So there was a court ruling on Thursday where Biden administration was stopped from turning back those families which have children, as a unit coming into the United States. So those people will be processed and they will perhaps be allowed in while they're pursuing their cases. Now, there could be situations where these court injunctions may be lifted. So we don't know at this time. This is a fluid situation.
No, I know. And I just can't even imagine what it's going to be like towards the end of the year, because like I'm sure you know, as an immigration attorney, we haven't seen numbers like this in 20 years. If someone's listening right now and either has a family member who is either a Central American migrant who is waiting their court case here in the US, or a Haitian who is tuning in to 710 KURV, what advice would you give someone right now who is currently waiting for their court date?
Well, if they are waiting for their court date, obviously, then, that means that they have been interviewed by the authorities and they have been deemed, at least their initial credible fear interview has taken place, and it has been determined that they may have a reasonable claim, from returning back. So obviously they are in the U.S. with authorization and they have to pursue their cases. So my suggestion is always to clients who have been given opportunity to present their case to make sure that they do show up for the court hearing. If they don't, and that is something which is being told to them by the immigration officers as well as judges, that if you don't show up for the hearing, you will be removed in absence, in absentia removal order, and then, basically you have lost your chance to present your case.
Your case, yep. Naim, thank you so much for joining me. Always a pleasure having you on the program. Thank you for being just so clear when it comes to what is happening and the laws behind this immigration crisis. Again, thank you so much for joining me. That is Naim Sakhia. He is an immigration attorney, my guest on 710 KURV.